Okay, so here we have a crazy situation. This business went from $40,000 monthly recurring revenue all the way to $14,000. Their churn was over 44%, so they were losing almost half of their customers every single month, and they were able to fix it, and now churn is down to 7.5%, which is way above industry average, right? So we're doing it again, another business strategy, business advice reaction video with yours truly. If you're like, who the are you? My name is Evelyn Weiss. I am an online entrepreneur who has scaled her business from 0 to over 8 million in revenue from low ticket digital products, courses, memberships, and communities. And I also run their ads as a media buyer. So I've been in this specific industry now since 2020. But I've been in online marketing for 15 years, and I'm just gonna add my thoughts to it. Okay, so this is education only. No, anything is guaranteed. You make your own decisions. Okay, I'm just gonna share my thoughts. All right, so let's jump in. I want to say that I know Joel. So this is a post in the Schoolers community. Schoolers community is the community of community builders on Skool that has over 170,000 members, and I think in there you find more tactical, practical, helpful business advice than in some of the most expensive online courses out there. And you get free access to this when you start your own school for $9 a month. And I love to pick total gems from this community to react to. Joel says this wasn't an easy process. We went from $40,000 monthly recurring revenue to $14,000 monthly recurring revenue. And that drop happened because of churn. At one point, we were losing nearly half of our revenue every single month. The bucket was leaking everywhere. Now things are different. We hit revenue over 10K. Churn is down to 7.5%. Even though we were making more before, it wasn't sustainable. Fixing churn was the only way forward. I have been there with my community Grow with Evelyn, which had insane churn. And I did a lot to fix it. We are currently down to, I think, 3% churn. And that was 10 times as much, as you can see here. And so I have quite a bit to add to this story here as well. And when I was at that point with high churn, I had no other option, stopping all the ads and just fixing what was going on. Now, here's a little backstory. So in September 28, 2024, they just finished playing the school games. So he jumped off, I think, his 80th sales call that he did in that month. So let me just jump in here. So he should be happy celebrating. Instead, he felt numb because he was really exhausted. An hour ago, I wrapped up my last call of the day, 14 since the morning. This is entrepreneurial madness. And I know, there's times when we have to do these type of things, but man, that's hard. Before September began, I had never taken a single sales call in my life. Now, less than a month later, I've done 80 of them and collected $26,000. So absolute rapid fire learning, and you feel that stretch, right, when you expand your capacity like that. I pulled up our spreadsheet. In September alone, we added 313 paid members to the Ads Lab and signed 26 high-ticket clients. The average more than 10 new paying members a day and almost one high-ticket client every 24 hours. I opened another tab on Skool, our dashboard, 38,000 in recurring revenue. I closed the computer and finally let myself fall onto the bed. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, it sinks in. We just won the school games. Congratulations again. And it's totally empty, like after you win the games. I still remember the moment when it stopped for me. Well, first off, I died 15 million ego deaths because Hamza, he got me, I think, last 24 hours or last 48 hours. And we were at that point with the $8 per month community and his was $129. And we just couldn't catch him anymore. And I was like, it just hurt. It just hurt. And at the same time, we were second, and I didn't even think remotely a month before that I would ever have a chance to even compete in that. But I was so exhausted. So that moment, like of reaching the finish line and like that realization, I was also just empty. I think it's just the pure physical exhaustion of what is happening. Plus you have all of your adrenaline wear off. So you really fall like into this, you collapse like after. And I remember I even had I had a full blown existential crisis after we played the school game for a month because of that. Because, you hold the adrenaline and you push so hard for a month, and then it's like all gone the next day. You don't have the same motivation to get out of the bed. It's just weird, and it's just another example for it's all about the journey and it's all about who you become. It's never about the outcome. Same happened to me when I won a 2 Coma Club award. It literally felt like nothing. It felt like nothing. But, I tell you, like holding my son in my arms for the first time, that felt like everything, right? Or, knowing you can do certain things, being able to trust yourself, that feels good, but not like reaching the actual thing. So that's something I can deeply resonate with. For a 24-year-old non-English speaker who a year ago didn't even know what entrepreneurship was, unreal, right? So, but by late October, so exactly a month later after the high, the churn was over 44%. Nearly half of our revenue was evaporating each month. Not a small business problem, business on fire. Okay, so why was the churn so bad in the first place? The truth is, it was the way we grew. To win the school games, we launched a $99 offer through the group. It wasn't planned to be recurring, just a higher touch package, the famous pump and dump. Unfortunately, we saw this like quite a bit during the school games, and I even had people calling me during the games, like at the end when all of this happening, they were like, offer a $9.99, I pay it, and I would just want to support you. And like people are really there to support you, but I was at that time I had never sold any high ticket offer like that before, and I now have a mastermind that Hermosi and Andrew Kirby helped me launch, but I was not in a position to offer that, and I knew that, and I was saying I'd rather die a proud second place than do something that does not feel in alignment with my values, because I didn't know how to do this at this point in time, and I am not like take the money, fuck around, find out type of person, because I felt like that was out of integrity and it didn't align with my values. I know that Devin has like a ton of experience as a media buyer before, so I know that if they always intended it as a one-off higher touch package and they help you actually launch your ads, that's a steal, and I know that they would be able to deliver on that quality. But of course, if it's like a one-off thing, it's natural that you fall off after. Once we were finishing delivering it, the payment stopped. So there I would be like, how did you guys like re-enroll those people, right? So how did you plan to care for them after the package? Because I think even though you should see like a high churn for the $99 price plan, you should still be able to re-enroll quite a few of those people, which I hope that happened. The second reason was our pricing ladder. We started September charging $29 a month. We ended charging $99. Every few days we bumped the price by $10. We announced it loudly, leaned hard on urgency, and told everyone that if they didn't join today, they pay more tomorrow. It worked like a charm. People piled up, but many joined simply because they feared missing out, not because they were ready to do the work of running ads. Urgency gets people through the door, but urgency alone doesn't keep them inside. Okay, so I have many thoughts on that. First off, I recommend, if you want to know like how to do the price increase ladder for your community, I have a video on that I can highly recommend. Of course I recommend it, right? So this is how you do those price increase launches. So they are not wrong per se. And even if you're playing the school games, I think this is a smart strategy. I had a membership that I'm not actively selling anymore. We still have it, that's Funnels and Ads Pro. And I was in the same crux with this membership. To run ads, you have to be at a point in your business where you understand like what you're committing to. You have a small budget to invest, right? So I say if you can put aside $5 a day, you can at least do retargeting ads and little lead generation, which I think is the minimum of what every entrepreneur should be doing. I rather, and this is exactly what I did, I took on additional freelance work. I was building websites. I did run ads for people. So I had arbitrage money to put into ads to buy back my time. So I think budgeting with $5 to $10 a day as the minimum budget, you should have that when you want to be serious about running ads. I reckon that a lot of entrepreneurs, either they're not necessarily in the position, or they haven't thought about arbitrage in that way that they want to commit to that budget, right? Or they just want to procrastinate on the ads because the whole mindset of it is scary, or they are just too early in the journey. So what I had done when I had my membership was I added a mini membership, the famous Coach Growth Hub that had over 10,000 members at one point. Also not actively selling it at the moment anymore because I more help experienced workers who want to monetize their personal growth journey. And the word coach just caused a lot of confusion because everybody's calling themselves a coach, and I didn't recognize that when I did it. Anyways, still think it's a really good product because it got people to the point where they were ready to run ads. And I gifted that to the people that were in the Funnels and Ads Pro membership. So they basically also got the things that they needed to get ready. And I think that's something that I would have recommended here, right? Like a beginner's course to help people to get to that point. Now, obviously, you can make an argument to say, well, they might not be in the position to deliver that beginner course. Here's something that I recommend because of what Skool offers, but you can also find that in the wild nature. You don't have to build on Skool to do this. Get an expert in that can close this hole and have an affiliate JV partnership with them. They're going to be super happy helping out in your community, maybe even hosting a call periodically. They can give you some of their materials, right? Helping hold members in there. You put an affiliate link back for the other stuff that they have. And with that, members can have something to do while they're in the waiting room. At the same time, with ads, because of the nature of ads for personal brands, online educators, community offers, there will be a point where you have to do some sort of integration backwards into the offer, right? Because the ad will only always perform as well as the offer performs. So you'll have to do work on the positioning, the about page. And to do that, they actually have to change what they do with their product. So to really, really, really get people results, you also have to kind of incorporate that, which I know that they do, right? And they started doing. But of course, when people come in, it's just a ton of people and they are hyped, but they don't immediately find it there. And they also don't see your vision for, I'll get that in here, because that's also something that can create retention. It's just you saying, hey, we recognize you also need this and we're building something with you. Hold on a second. We're just evaluating right now how we can build this in the best way possible with you. What ideas do you have? That foreshadowing can also create the retention, because as long as there, or as soon as there is the thank you, the knowing that this will be there, people are like, cool, for $29 a month or even $99, I'll stick it out with you guys because I can see where you're steering the ship. But that clarity has to be there. And there's a special challenge in this situation because it's multiple owners of the community, right? So I think when it's multiple owners of the community, there needs to be also like a really clear lead, as in the product development side of it. So I don't necessarily think that the value ladders are the problem, but I think like this is something you just need to consider. And there's many communities like ad communities, right? So where people are not fully ready to do that work. How do you close that gap, right? And how do you cast a vision for we are integrating, and how much back integrate do you do? And how do you hold yourself developing your product, right? So I think that's a lens you need to start putting on in your business as well. It's like that product development lens, right? So how do I develop the product? How do I communicate the product development to my members so that I have their trust? Okay, so what did they do to solve churn? The first big change was offering one-to-one onboarding calls for every new member. And I find this so interesting, and this is also why I wanted to highlight this post, is I did not do any calls with members to fix my churn. So there's many different ways, and what I want to do is kind of find the underlying shared principle of what we did. These weren't sales calls. They were real onboarding calls. We wanted each person to feel guided to get their first quick win and to know where to focus. So I think here it is this trust element, right? It is this, I will get here what I joined for, that this is doing. And of course also the first quick win, right? So the first like return on investment on the community, really, really cool. And basically having a personalized roadmap for how do I consume the community. So what we did here, as a contrast to this is, you can also check out the YouTube videos for this, when my churn was like really, really bad, I decided to put the community on a wait list. And here you see lineup membership model. This is where I brought my team on to explain it, but I actually did it much earlier when after scaling phase waitlist tutorial. So 10 months ago, I switched to waitlist, and we actually also have an onboarding, but it's a written onboarding through our waitlist, right? And today we have secret opening day, which is a part of the strategy that you can learn when you watch the video. And we did the onboarding in written form in the waitlist, right? And we nurture people there. And we already give them the steps there. So when they join the community, they already feel the trust. They know how to get their quick win, and they also know where they specifically need to focus. So we're accomplishing kind of the same things with two different onboarding mechanisms, but I do agree that fixing the onboarding and, however that looks for you is a key for retention. Okay, so those calls gave us something else to unfiltered feedback. At the end of every conversation, I asked the same question. What could we do inside AdsLab that would help you be more successful with your group? I did over 200 of those calls myself, which is amazing. I think that shows the dedication to the member results as well. If 1 or 2 people mentioned something, I noted it, but didn't change anything. If 5 or 10 people brought it up, I knew we had a hole that needed fixing. Slowly, by listening and implementing, our churn came down from the high 30s into the 20s. At the same time, Skool just released the free trial feature. We turned it on in late October. That meant that nearly everyone I spoke to during those calls still was technically on trial. 8 out of 10 people we spoke with ended up staying, which more than justified the effort. The high volume of calls gave us massive amounts of data in short time, feedback loop were tight, and we improved even faster. Now, I love this, and clearly it absolutely worked. Here, I want to give an alternative for those of you that don't want to do onboarding calls, right? Because I was definitely in that camp. And it's not because I'm afraid to do the work. It's because at the times when I worked on the membership, I was here with my son for 2 months alone because my partner had to stay in Canada. So I did not have the capacity in the day to do that, right? To this extent, also because I had other commitments. So I needed to find a different way. What I did first was exit surveys. So I personally messaged all of the people that had canceled, which was an unholy amount of people. And I analyzed all of the feedback that they gave me. And let me see if I actually still have the Google form. Okay. The sad to see you go, but thank you for having been here and giving feedback survey. So here you can see and you can screenshot this and paste it in ChatGPT if you want to have the exact text. But basically the questions I was asking them, if Grow with Evelyn was your community, what would you change today? What would you change in general? What's the one thing I could add to make it worth rejoining? What's the one thing I could add to make it worth staying? And then I said, I'm planning to cap it. What would make you think, damn, canceling was a mistake? And I got 79 responses. And they were all over the place. For some, I did too much about Facebook ads. For some, I didn't do enough. For some, I did too much about funnels. For some, I didn't do enough about funnels. For some, I did too much about Skool. For some, I didn't do enough about Skool. For some, I did too much about email. For some, I didn't do enough about email. So I was like, I am so confused with this because although I have 79 answers, I don't have reliable information. So I had another idea, and that was I asked the people that stayed why they stayed. And they told me things like, we just love watching how you create things, right? Or we love to follow the process when you share your ideas. We love that you're giving all of the details. We love that you're in depth. I just love listening to you talk on the Q&A. So I just love to see how your brain works. I just want to be in your environment. So it was completely different things, but they all were similar, and they were all along the lines of, we love that you always create something new. We love that you share over the shoulder how you do it. We love how transparent you are with things. We love how your brain works. We love listening to you. We like your perspective, want to hear your opinion. And so I did more of that, right? So, and instead of saying, okay, what could I do to not lose these people, was who am I optimizing for? And I realized that I needed to be out there even more as myself and talk even more about all of the things that I like and just reach more people with that filter of you join Grow with Evelyn for me. It's a proximity membership. There you go, right? And that's what fixed my churn, was looking at the people who stayed really, really closely. And I don't know if they have done that yet. So this also might be like a really, I mean, obviously their churn is in a really good place right now, but it might be an opportunity to say, let me talk to our most loyal fans, the most engaged members, right? And let's see why they're staying. Okay, then we have the last lever. Still churn hovered around 20%. Then we realized something critical. Many people joining on the free trials never intended to pay. Some used fake cards, some used cards with no funds. Because Skool retries failed payments for 2 weeks, these members could stick around for 21 days without ever paying. On the back end, every one of those declined payments counted as lost MRR, which inflated churn. So we turned off trials, and as the backlog of free users finally cycled out, churn dropped from 20 to 10. Does this mean free trials are bad? Not necessarily. They might work great for you. The bigger lesson is that churn numbers might not reflect the reality. Good call. Nice takeaway. Makes sense, right? So I would say the exact same thing. In your case, cutting trials was the final squeeze that revealed the real progress we had made. So I love to use trial as an offer. When, usually Grow with Evelyn is on the wait list model. Today we have our secret opening day. But when I do open, I typically open at the back end of a monthly workshop. And there I deliberately turn on the trial for people so that they can check it out. I have a really high trial conversion rate. And those people also stay well. But it is people that have come from the workshop where they already spent a ton of time with me, received a lot of value, and now they're checking it out, and the trial is a limited time offer, and then it goes away. And it's a great way for me to create real urgency on top of just the availability without having to give a further discount. So trials are great, but I like to use them as a limited time offer. And here, especially because you're giving the onboarding call and you're pouring a lot of effort into them, I do think for this specific scenario, it does make sense that they have turned off the trial. Okay, so what mattered wasn't removing the trials. What mattered was all of the unglamorous work we did before that, talking to the customers. I think that's the underlying principle as well. Talk to your customers. May that be with onboarding calls, right? Or in onboarding messages. May that be with an exit survey. And talking to the people that are staying, you need to talk with them. You need to be in the community and see, what your offer needs so that they can stay. Using their feedback to improve the product, yes, and ensuring the data we're measuring was reliable. The work isn't sexy, absolutely, and it's not a clever trick or a shiny hack. It's hundreds of conversations, 1,000 small adjustments, and patience to keep at it. I love this, and I do agree with it. And I think for me personally, I just want to highlight this again. And for them, it might not be possible, right? Because of how they have set up their school. For me personally, shifting my school to a proximity model was still, and it's still, but to be transparent, I right now spend about half an hour to an hour on average per day for Grow with Evelyn. I don't think that that's super crazy amount of work anymore. Although I will have sprints where, of course, create more resources and pour more in, and working on that in the background takes up time, but it's things that I love to do, right? So for me, switching to a proximity model rather than a transformation model, that was the key. You can be in my world rather than join to triple your ROAS, right? Or to get X outcome. That was the biggest shift for me because it allows me to focus on building my personal brand, create more value in general, and then have more demand for me as a person, and then just providing closer access to this in a community that I have cultured around my values. That kind of pulled the strings straight all across the board. So I want to say that made it much easier for me. So if you have the chance to switch to a proximity model and you like that resonates with you, the way that I conceptualize it is you are becoming the version of yourself that you wanted to become anyway, but you're adding a forcing function and reward by doing that in public and documenting your journey and productizing your the waste of you getting there, the experiences that you had, right? The things that you did for yourself anyway, putting them into context, turning them into stepping stones for others. That's what you get paid for in the proximity model. It's different than a transformation model, because you role model and you still productize your journey towards that, but people are joining still for you, not for the specific outcome. It's much easier to be you consistently than to create for all kinds of different people with all kinds of different work ethics and experiences and skill sets reliably the same outcome, right? So it's much easier. So if my churn spiked again tomorrow, I'd set up a way to actually talk to the customer and hear from them directly. Really, really strong. I'd collect every piece of feedback in one place, make a simple document. I think that's absolutely crucial. Wait, and then you can also work a little bit with ChatGPT to brainstorm around it, which I think is really helpful. Wait until patterns emerge before making changes. Ooh, massively underrated. Massively underrated to not have too much reactivity and make too many changes all at once. I've definitely been in this place. And to measure the impact of the churn, for the churn, you have to wait a month, right? You get some, you get some data, but you definitely want to wait for a pattern. If you have enough members to take hundreds of calls, I'd hold off until 5 to 10 people bring up the same thing. I do agree, right? So, but again, it's optimizing. What are you optimizing for? Are you optimizing your transformation community? Yes. If you're optimizing for proximity community, I think there's a time where you have to sustain people that are not here for you falling away, but you actually have to change your marketing to make people come for you. So I think that a lot of churn can be fixed in the marketing, as in what are we actually promising? And the less I promised and the more I was like, this is just my inner circle, with all of like access to the things I create, the more I prevented churn by purely what people were expecting. So I think that that's also a thing to consider. But I do 100% agree with waiting before you make changes and not make changes frantically. Fill your calendar. I did still communicate, but I did it in written form. So that's something where we diverge, but I definitely see your point. And I think if you have the capacity, do it and stick with it for at least 3 months. I absolutely agree with that. Like, you have to think of it from a long-term perspective. Just to clarify, when you start acting on repeated feedback, watch what happens. Fix the issue, then pay attention on future calls. Do people still bring it up? Do they tell you it's better now? If so, it's great. Mark it as resolved and then move to the next thing. If not, keep tweaking. The loop never ends. I also agree. And then there's one final thing. All of those calls were not sales calls. They didn't want to upsell, right? And also, you don't need to have a full-blown churn crisis to do this. I 100% agree. You should always look for ways to align what you promise and what people are joining for with what's actually delivered, and focus on providing a really, really great customer experience in that way, right? And it's a forever process. It's a forever process that will basically never stop. But it's also, one of the biggest things to pay attention to and to be mindful of in your business. Overall, I think this was such an incredible post, and I just want to applaud. He said one thing: my goal is to be fully transparent so that if you're dealing with the same challenges or considering some of the ideas we tried, you can learn from both our mistakes and our wins and pay down the ignorance step faster, right? And so he said, in this post, I'll share exactly what we did, even if it makes us look bad. And I just appreciate this post and the vulnerability and the transparency so much. I want to applaud them. I think more entrepreneurs should be like this. It would massively help out the community. So I found this incredibly valuable, and I hope I was able to add some valuable context and some of my experience to it. And yeah, that you found this helpful as well. See you in another video. Bye for now.